To save Ethan Hawthorne, I gave him one of my kidneys. But when he woke up, not only had he forgotten me, he mistakenly believed I was the bad woman who had trapped him in a marriage he didn't want. In the 3rd year of our marriage, Ethan held our son, his face filled with hatred. "Son," he said, "how about we get you a new mommy?" A rare smile spread across my son's face. Okay, I'm so sick of that woman. The mission was a complete failure. The system stripped me of all my emotions and desires, and I left to start a new life far away. But then, Ethan, looking utterly distraught, found me again with our son in tow. "I was wrong," he pleaded. "I'm begging you, can you come back?" But I was already married, with a life of my own. I had nothing to do with them anymore. In the vast, empty rooms of the Hawthorne villa, I walked to the dining table with the meal I had just prepared, a smile on my face. Suddenly, Elias came running and slammed right into me. "I don't like you, why do you get to be my mom? Your cooking is the worst, I hate you, you nasty woman." There was a sharp clatter. Scalding oil splattered all over me as the dishes crashed to the floor. I sucked in a sharp breath, staring at the ruined meal for a long moment. A throbbing pain radiated from where my wrist had hit the ground. I had spent 3 whole hours preparing that meal, all for nothing. Today was my birthday. No one remembered, and now even this small gesture was destroyed. From the living room, I heard Ethan's impatient voice, his cool tone laced with detachment. "Are you that useless? You can't even hold a plate? Your own son can't stand you. How pathetic." On the sofa, bathed in the glow of a spotlight, Ethan didn't even bother to look up. A mocking smirk played on his lips as he spoke. He didn't ask if I was hurt, nor did he offer to help. Just endless scorn and ridicule. He didn't like me. I had always known that. Today was the last day of my mission to win back Ethan's love. If I failed, the system would take away all my emotions and desires. Then, I would no longer remember anything about them. I would no longer love them. I trembled as I pushed myself up from the floor, only for my son to shove me back down again. "You foul woman, I don't like you." Hearing our son yell at me, Ethan seemed to find the situation amusing. He finally looked up and slowly walked over, a look of intrigued cruelty on his face. "Come on, son, let's not eat this disgusting food. We'll go find Auntie Serena, how about that?" Auntie Serena was Serena Rivers, Ethan's idealized love, the woman he had adored for so long. Ethan scooped Elias up from the floor, casting an indifferent, cold glance in my direction. "Yay, Daddy, I love Auntie Serena, the most I hate that woman," my son cheered, clapping his hands in delight. He pouted playfully. "Daddy, can you make Auntie Serena my mommy?" Ethan's mood lifted instantly at his words. He chuckled and gently tapped Elias' nose with his finger. "We'll see how you behave. If you're good, I'll get you a new mom." He shot me a look of blatant provocation. I remained silent. I forced a smile, but it was more like a pained grimace. They say the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. My son, just like his father, didn't love me. From the very beginning, I had never managed to find a way into Ethan's heart. All these years, I had persisted, I had tried. I stumbled and struggled, but in the end, it was all for nothing. I watched the 2 of them leave, my heart feeling as though it were being pricked by 1,000 tiny needles. The butler, Stuart, rushed over and helped me to my feet. "Miss, are you all right?" I shook my head. The door slammed shut. In that final second, the system's voice echoed in my mind. "Host's mission has failed. All emotions and desires will now be revoked." This time, it was truly goodbye. Since I couldn't force it, it was better to let everything go. I opened the clock app on my phone and secretly set a countdown for my departure. I knelt down and began to silently wipe the floor. There was so much oil, no matter how much I scrubbed, it wouldn't come clean. I suddenly remembered that, a long time ago, the Hawthorns had housekeepers. But on our wedding night, Ethan came home late to an empty house, save for me. It was the middle of the night when he staggered in, drunk. Tears in my eyes, I had dared to ask him where he'd been. He had frowned and roared with laughter, the mockery clear in his voice. "Are you insane, Grace? You really want to be a housewife that badly? Fine, if you love asking so much, then you can live up to the title." From that day on, he made my life difficult, dismissing all the household staff. My body was weak, and cleaning the enormous villa would take me an entire day. In all these years, he never once asked about it. But it didn't matter. I was leaving soon. Leaving Ethan, leaving my son, and leaving this place of sorrow. At that thought, I pushed the memories from my mind and walked to the blinds. The rain was heavy today. Drops fell into puddles, creating ripples like butterflies dancing in the dark. The sky was a murky gray, like ink that wouldn't spread. Lights in the building across the street were turning on, one by one. I clutched the photograph in my hand and, with a few quick motions, tore it into pieces. It was our family portrait. Except in that portrait, my son was frowning, Ethan was looking down, and I was the only one smiling. Because neither of them liked me. A family portrait that no one liked was useless. I tossed the pieces into the trash can. They traced a perfect arc through the air before landing. My gaze returned to the window. A black Maybach pulled up through the rain. The door slowly opened, revealing Ethan's sharply defined face. Just from the look in his eyes, I could tell he was in a great mood. But now, devoid of emotion, I no longer felt happy just because he was. Sure enough, about 5 minutes later, a woman with curly hair stepped out of the car. She was wearing a black gown, looking radiant and grand. It was Serena Rivers. It was Serena Rivers, the new mother my son longed for, the idealized love of Ethan's heart. Serena held Elias' hand as he skipped ahead, lollipop in hand. She clearly adored him, calling out every so often for him to avoid the puddles. The light shining in my son's eyes was something I, his own mother, had never seen. Elias loved Serena, how much even I couldn't say. Just like his father, he would stare at photos of Serena for hours on end. If Elias refused to do his homework, a single word from Serena would make him obedient. If Elias refused to eat, a single word from Serena would have him finishing his assignments perfectly. But for me, Elias only ever had one response. Get lost, can you just leave me alone? No wonder Dad doesn't like you. They say a child's words are innocent, but they can also be the most hurtful. I silently looked away. Other than a detached thought of how happy they looked, I felt not a single shred of sadness. I no longer loved Ethan, and I no longer loved my son. It was all in the past. There was no turning back. Serena pushed open the door, and her eyes met mine. There was no surprise in that moment, just the same queenly air she always carried. She led Elias to the sofa and sat down, a triumphant smile gracing her lips. In all our years of marriage, Ethan had never cared about my feelings, bringing home lovers or confidants as he pleased. But this was the first time he had brought someone here. Perhaps Serena thought Ethan loved her more than ever. Or perhaps she had never considered me a rival at all. After all, it wasn't just Ethan who adored her, but my own flesh and blood. But now, I no longer had to see her as a rival either. Like I would for any distinguished guest, I poured water, washed some fruit, and placed it on the coffee table. With a faint smile, I said, "It's all washed, go ahead." Serena looked puzzled, studying me for a few seconds. In the past, I would always hide in a corner and cry, begging Ethan not to go, trying every trick I could think of to ruin their dates. To see me so calm now would make anyone suspicious. I said nothing, maintaining my smile. Ethan grabbed my sleeve and yanked me aside, his brow furrowed with anger. "You washed fruit for her. Grace, are you out of your mind?" So this was what love looked like. He looked down on me so much that even the fruit I washed was, in his eyes, dirty. He was right. I was never someone worthy of their love. I looked up, meeting his gaze. His eyes were cold and deep, and I could see clearly that there was no room for me in them. "If Miss Rivers doesn't like it, I can take it away." I spoke each word slowly and clearly. Ethan sneered, "Grace, you'd better not regret this. You like washing fruit, don't you? Then you can wash every single piece of fruit in this house. You're not sleeping until you're done." I nodded. "All right." I truly did wash the fruit over and over again. I lost count of how many times. Ethan said, "Serena can't eat anything too cold or too hot. It has to be lukewarm." I nodded. He was right. A girl should be pampered. Ethan seemed to love Serena to the point of obsession, just like a typical overbearing CEO from a romance novel. He was afraid she wouldn't like the food, afraid she wouldn't be happy. The apples had to be peeled, and he had me slice several melons to compare which was sweeter. I sat to the side, feeling like a clown peeking in on someone else's happiness, watching them with empty eyes. Serena smiled and playfully asked Ethan to feed her. Ethan slowly leaned in, a doting smile on his face, and gently placed a piece of fruit in her mouth. To finish, he planted a soft kiss on her forehead. Yet somehow, I had managed to displease him again. Midway through, he threw the fruit aside, grabbed my neck, and his face contorted with rage. "Grace, are you done with your act? You'd better remember what you've done today. Don't you regret this? Don't think for a second this will get my attention." But I hadn't done anything. I wasn't acting, and I certainly didn't want his attention. I no longer loved him. I blinked. The fruit, I washed it seriously. I wasn't acting at all. "Mr. Hawthorne, please let me go. You're hurting me. Don't you regret this, I'm telling you." He repeated the same threatening words. Before the words had even faded, he pulled Serena into his arms and they kissed passionately, their lips locked in an inseparable embrace. It was hard to imagine a more fervent kiss. I placed a hand on my chest. The familiar heartache was gone. Even when my son clapped his hands and shouted with glee, "Great Auntie Serena is going to be my mommy," I still felt absolutely nothing. I think I've really let go. I curved my lips into a smile, as if I were watching a movie reach its happy ending, and calmly said, "Congratulations." Congratulations to them, and congratulations to myself. Serena didn't leave that night. Ethan had her stay. He told me that if I got on my knees and begged him, he would make her leave. I didn't kneel. I didn't care. I just shook my head faintly, gazed out at the vast, rainy night, and went to my room. "The rain is heavy tonight, just stay here," I heard Ethan call out behind me in the final second before the door closed. "Grace, you'd better not regret this." Don't regret it? How many times had he told me not to regret things tonight? I thought silently. In the years after we married, Ethan rarely came home. I raised our son alone, a life filled with hardship and sorrow. When Elias was little, he would often cry through the night. I was afraid he'd wet the bed, afraid he'd be thirsty, afraid he'd be hungry. I often stayed awake all night and eventually developed chronic insomnia. I don't know how much time passed before intimate sounds started coming from the room next door, moans and soft pants, mixed with a woman's coquettish whimpers. I silently put in my earbuds and turned on some sleep music. The ticking of the clock echoed in my ears. Just 2 more days until I leave, I told myself. It would be over soon. I didn't sleep a wink. As the sky began to show the first hint of dawn, I got out of bed. I took out my things from the closet, looking them over and over. After living in Aria City for so many years, I was surprised at how few possessions I had. A single suitcase was only half full. Hearing me get up, Elias ran in from the living room. "What are you doing, packing your things? Don't think you can threaten Dad by running away. It won't make him like you. You detestable woman." I don't know when Ethan had appeared behind our son, one hand in his pocket, a look of utter disdain on his face. "Even our son can see through your little tricks. Grace, what's the point of pretending?" I didn't speak, nor did I try to defend myself. For so many years, the phrase Ethan had said to me most often was, "Stop pretending." He said he hated my hypocrisy, my shamelessness. He hated that I had supposedly trapped him into marriage. "But Ethan, it was never my idea to marry you. You've just forgot. It didn't matter anymore, though." This time, I truly wasn't pretending. He looked at me, said nothing more, and left the room with Serena, the 3 of them laughing and talking. As she was leaving, Serena came over to me. Her low-cut sweater conveniently revealed a smattering of fresh, red marks on her skin. She was showing off, trying to force me to back down. "Sister, everyone knows the newcomer takes the prize. Surely you understand that? Know when to leave." Her beautiful face was alight with triumph. I nodded, agreeing with her completely. She was right. A person needs to know their place. It was time to leave. The empty room was once again left with only me. But it had been like this for years, and I was used to it now. I silently walked back to my room, took our wedding photo down from the wall, and smashed the glass frame. Shards scattered across the floor. I remembered how Ethan always said this wedding photo was ugly. He wouldn't let me hang it in the living room, nor in his bedroom. He'd said, "If you like it, take it. Just don't put it in my space." It wasn't until later that I saw another photo on his bedside table. In that picture, he was holding Serena's hand with his left and our son's with his right. He was beaming. That's when I understood. He didn't hate the photo, he just hated me. In an instant, the photo was mercilessly consumed by flames, leaving only a trace of ash. I gathered everything that reminded me of him. Suddenly, I saw the diary. Inside were all the daily moments with him I had painstakingly written down over the years, filled with the immense love I had hidden away. Without hesitation, I tore it to shreds, page by page, and tossed them into the fire as well. Stuart rushed over, saw the mess in the room, and hurriedly asked, "Miss, what are you doing? Weren't these your favorite things? Why are you burning them all?" Stuart wanted to salvage them, but before he could even reach out, the flames silently devoured the last of the pictures. "Miss, if you burn them in anger, you'll regret it later." I smiled and shook my head. "These things are old. I'll get new ones someday." I would not regret this, not anymore. By the time I had packed everything, the sky had already darkened. There were only two things left, the divorce certificate and the separation agreement. Mrs. Hawthorne called, offering hollow words of comfort. "Grace, my dear," she began, "after all these years, our family has wronged you. If you want to leave, we won't stop you. No matter where you go, remember to call and let us know you're safe. If it weren't for you back then, Ethan wouldn't be alive today." I laughed, not saying much. "Mrs. Hawthorne, let's just let the past be the past." That's right. If not for that incident all those years ago, perhaps I wouldn't have stayed with the Hawthorne family for so long. Now that the dust has settled, it's best to let everything fade into normalcy. "As for the kidney," I continued, "consider it my repayment to your family. Thank you for your care over the years." Perhaps feeling a sense of debt, Mrs. Hawthorne hung up and had Stuart wire a large sum of money to my account. I held my phone, staring at the long string of numbers. A sudden sense of release washed over me. I knew that our story, my past with Ethan, was all contained within that number. My youth had been bought out. For many days, Ethan didn't come back. Just like before, he was unwilling to return, unwilling to see me. But this time, I had no desire to rush him. I just packed my things, constantly counting on my fingers how many days were left until my departure. My phone chimed. It was a message from Serena. A photo. She was wearing a pink camisole, the hint of cleavage just visible, a picture of delicate beauty. The background was a hotel room, and a faint smile played on her lips. There were also a few voice messages. I pressed play, and the words that came out were crude. "How can you be so shameless? Do I have to spell it out for you? What's the point of you holding on to that position? How does it feel to sleep alone every night?" "It doesn't feel good," I thought to myself. In the background of the voice message, I could faintly hear the sound of a shower running. It sounded like Ethan was taking a shower. Serena loved sending me photos, loved sharing their daily life together. I often saw on her social media feed how Ethan took her hiking or to watch meteor showers. For her, he had once booked an entire field of roses just because she said she liked them. Whether in photos or videos, Ethan was always smiling, his handsome eyes full of adoration. They were like the hero and heroine of a story, and I was the villain who broke up their love, the one everyone cursed. Beep. The message was sent. I replied, "Don't worry, I'll be leaving soon. I'll give you back your complete marriage." Now, this clown was finally determined to exit the stage. A few minutes later, Ethan called, his voice laced with anxiety. "Are you sick? You just love playing the saint, don't you?" I didn't answer, silently ending the call. It was only then that I realized I hadn't eaten all day. I slowly poured water into a pot and brought it to a boil, staring at the churning bubbles for a long time. The door suddenly burst open. It revealed Ethan's sharp, chiseled face. He stood at the entrance, staring at me for a few seconds as if he'd just had a terrible shock, then rushed over. "You're alive, so why didn't you say anything?" A chill from the outside air clung to him, and I shivered as it hit me. He gripped my chin fiercely, and I stammered. I was afraid of disturbing you." "Disturbing me? Disturbing what? You're so good at acting. Playing hard to get again, are we? Grace, you're a real performer." He pinned me against the kitchen door, and I couldn't move. He sneered, and his long fingers turned off the gas stove with a click. The next second, he swept me up into his arms and brutally threw me onto the sofa. The force of the throw nearly knocked the life out of me. His knuckles scraped against my shoulder blade, the unfamiliar touch sending a shiver down my spine. He gripped my shoulders fiercely, biting down on my skin like a man possessed. My earlobe, my cheek, my collarbone, all the way down. "Isn't this what you want? Don't you just want me to be with you?" "Well, now you have me," he roared, his voice hoarse. His fingers roughly explored my neck, and he kissed me, but the touch of his tongue felt like a burn. I was scared and whispered his name. "Ethan, Ethan." He let out a cold laugh and grew rougher. The ringing of a phone cut through the air. at the most inopportune moment. He frowned, tossed the phone aside without answering, and looked at me with a sneer. Still acting, playing the innocent virgin now? I endured the pain he inflicted, struggling to get away. But he suddenly became ferocious, as if trying to merge me into his own body. I was like a puppet on a string, completely at his mercy, as silent tears streamed down my face into the night. An immense sense of shame enveloped me. I finally understood. This was how he saw me. He was right. He had always looked down on me. When I woke up, the sun was already high in the sky. He was just walking out of the bathroom, his upper body bare. The clearly defined lines of his muscles were on display as he raised an eyebrow at me. Sunlight streamed in, hitting the side of his face. For a few seconds, I was in a daze, as if I remembered the early days of our passionate love. A sharp wince, it hurt. He instinctively looked over at me, his brow furrowed slightly. Still not done acting. He reached out and tossed something at me. It was a bottle of painkillers. If it hurts, take some. I don't want to hear you whining. I'm leaving soon. Don't call and bother me. His words carried a clear warning. I nodded, realizing that the calls from last night were from Serena. 20 of them, all unanswered. I struggled to get up, but my waist ached terribly. As soon as I stood, I stumbled. In the shadows on the floor, I thought I saw Ethan raise his hand and reach out to me. I thought he was going to steady me. But 1 second, 2 seconds, 3 seconds passed, his hand never touched me. Instead, he single-handedly pulled his belt from the sofa behind me and glanced up, his expression indifferent. He shot me a look, and then another cold, mocking remark. That's all you can take. My clothes were scattered across the living room floor, a complete mess. His clothes, however, were neatly folded to one side, a clear line drawn between us. I said nothing. Like a scavenger at sunset, I moved step by step, picking up my clothes and clumsily putting them on. I'm leaving, he said. He walked to the door, then stopped. As if he had just remembered something, he asked, "Why are you packing a suitcase?" A flicker of panic seemed to cross his eyes, but it was gone as quickly as it appeared, his expression returning to normal. Of course, I told myself, it was just an illusion. After all, this was Ethan. Why would he be reluctant to see me go? Why would he not hate me? He was just asking casually, enjoying the sight of my humiliation. I shook my head and replied, "It's nothing, just some old junk I'm throwing out." Hearing this, he turned his head slightly, his gaze sweeping over my room. As if a thought occurred to him, he let out a short, derisive laugh. He tilted his head. "Threw it all out. If you had been this obedient from the start, I might have shown you a little more kindness. If you just stay quiet like this and don't cause trouble, I won't make things difficult for you." The door slammed shut again with a thud. He left in a hurry. Perhaps there was a fire to put out at home. If he didn't get back soon, Serena would be angry. "Don't worry, Ethan. Soon I will be quiet. Quietly leaving just as you wish." The time of my departure was drawing closer. After much thought, I decided to go to the main Hawthorne residence. I had always been in charge of Elia's school affairs. It was time to hand them over. He was just a child. He shouldn't be caught up in the affairs of adults. I gathered Elia's documents, counted them carefully, and only then did I feel at ease enough to leave the house. The winters in Arya City were too cold. The frigid wind cut right through you. The streets were bustling with people, all hurrying on their way. I pulled my coat tighter around me. Beep, beep. A cab pulled up. "Where to, miss?" "Southwood Estates." "You got it." The car door closed, shutting out the cold. I tucked my hands in and turned my head. Outside the window, the scenery flew by. I suddenly saw a couple holding hands walking down the street. They stopped, and the boy took off his own scarf and wrapped it around the girl's neck, then smiled and patted her fluffy white hat. His eyes were full of adoration. The corners of my lips lifted involuntarily. The car window reflected my pale, haggard face. The difference between someone who is loved and someone who is not is so starkly clear. The Hawthorne estate wasn't far, just a 5-minute drive. Stuart came out to greet me. When he saw me, he bowed his head respectfully. I was different from others. After saving Ethan's life, the Hawthorne family had always shown me a great deal of respect. "Miss, please come into the hall. The madam is waiting for you." "All right," I nodded and walked inside. To be honest, I hadn't been to the main residence many times. After we got married, we lived elsewhere. Ethan rarely came back for holidays or festivals, and he certainly rarely brought me with him. In the magnificent hall, Mrs. Hawthorne stood in the center. "Mrs. Hawthorne." Mrs. Hawthorne smiled and nodded. Her gaze fell on my neck, lingered for a few seconds, then she looked up at me. I followed her gaze and saw a large patch of red marks. It must have been from last night. I unconsciously tried to cover them. "Grace, indecisiveness is the most harmful thing of all. Only a clean break can untangle a messy knot. Just leave the documents here. And remember what I told you." The implication was clear. She wanted me to leave, and to do so decisively. Mrs. Hawthorne had never liked me, I knew that. She hated my ordinary background, believing I wasn't good enough for her son. If not for that kidney, perhaps I would never have had any connection to the Hawthorne family. I nodded, understanding her meaning. "Thank you for your guidance, madam. I will ask Ethan for the divorce agreement tonight and leave tomorrow." My memory drifted back to that winter. That winter was very cold. Thick snow always weighed down the branches, looking as if it would fall at any moment. I seemed to remember again, sitting by his hospital bed. Looking out, everything was a vast expanse of white. That year, Ethan had a car accident and one of his kidneys failed. Everyone was at a loss. I stayed by his side, pacing anxiously, my eyes red and swollen from crying. Mrs. Hawthorne gave me $3 million to buy half of my kidney and asked me to stay with him always. At that time, I had a mission to complete, and my mother was sick at home. All factors told me I had to bow my head. I accepted the $3 million, which also meant I had to swallow everything and keep it a secret. Mrs. Hawthorne said Ethan was proud, and old Mr. Hawthorne would never allow a sickly heir to take over the Hawthorne Group. It wasn't until old Mr. Hawthorne passed away and Ethan had full control of the company that Mrs. Hawthorne finally relaxed. That same year, Serena Rivers returned to the country. My mission was over. And so was my love story. For a long time, I stayed by Ethan's bedside, a vigil that seemed to stretch on forever. The cold wind pulled me back from my memories. Stuart saw me to the gate of the estate. I took out my phone and dialed a number. The screen lit up with a name. Contact, Ethan Hawthorne. The phone rang and rang. He didn't pick up. I had expected as much. He was probably in a hotel with Serena. Perhaps Serena was still angry, or perhaps he was lying beside her, coaxing her to sleep. I pressed my temples and waved to the butler. "Stuart, this is far enough." Just as the call was about to disconnect, he answered. A hello came from the other side. It wasn't Ethan. It was his assistant. "Miss Miller, Mr. Hawthorne is busy right now. I'm taking the call for him. Is there something I can help you with?" The background was noisy. Ethan wasn't at the hotel. I didn't dwell on it and just said, "Where is he? I need to talk to him about something. Please let him know." The other end went silent. 5 minutes later, a location was sent to my phone. Club 7. When we were passionately in love, Ethan used to take me to Club 7 all the time for business dinners, to meet clients for fun. But after Serena returned, the person by his side was usually her. A world with 3 people is too crowded. When she was there, I was always the odd one out. The taxi pulled up to the curb once again. The thought of seeing Serena and Ethan filled me with 100 reasons not to go in. I hated the strange looks from the people at their table, and I hated their whispered gossip even more. Over the years, people had trampled my dignity into the ground behind my back. Words would always find their way to my ears. Despicable and shameless, or a marriage scammer. The one who broke up true love, the wicked supporting female villain, all of these were me. They were my labels. And Ethan's response was always, "Well, isn't that what you are?" I was scared. I was truly scared. I never wanted to be tangled up in that kind of drama again. Unconsciously, I found myself at the door of the private room. I took a deep breath and told myself, this is the last time, just hold on a little longer. I can really leave this place soon. I cautiously pushed open the door. A blast of cold air rushed in, dispersing the sultry atmosphere in the room. Ethan was sitting across the room, leaning lazily against the booth, toying with a lighter in his hand. When he saw me, he just gave me a cursory glance. As for Serena, she immediately got up, swayed her hips over to Ethan, and wrapped her arms around his, leaning against his shoulder. She was putting on a show for me. Her eyes were filled with provocation. Almost instantly, everyone in the room burst into laughter, teasing him. Well, CEO Hawthorne, your pampered little wife has come to find you, but you've already got one in your arms with 2 of them. Why not share one with your brothers?" Ethan didn't speak, his fingers tapping a rhythm on the table. However, a shadow of displeasure seemed to cover his face. The room quickly fell silent again. I clenched my fists tightly. Ethan, I need to talk to you about something. What do you need? A meal? Money? What did I say before I left? Didn't I tell you not to call me? Don't you understand? His anger came at me in a barrage of questions. I froze for a few seconds. He stood up and shoved me to the ground. I said, I'm not coming home. You don't need to wait for me for dinner. Ethan wrapped his arm around Serena, a smile on his face that was both arrogant and cold. And if you're looking to entertain me, I have plenty of people for that. Unlike you, who just lies there in bed like a corpse. His words were crude and ugly, like poisoned daggers stabbing into my flesh, making my cheeks burn with shame. But this time, I really wasn't here to ask him to dinner or to ask him to come home. I was here for a divorce. I slowly pulled the documents from my bag, held them out to him, and in a voice that was almost a whisper, I said his name. Ethan, let's get a divorce. A divorce? His brow furrowed. Perhaps he never expected that a shameless woman like me could finally remember her dignity. Perhaps he was happy that I was finally leaving him. The atmosphere in the bar instantly dropped to freezing point, so quiet you could hear a pin drop. The dim lights cast shadows on Ethan's face, making it look dark and unreadable. I saw he was visibly stunned. He took his hand out of his pocket and looked me up and down as if watching a joke unfold. For a long time. Grace, are you worthy? Are you worthy of divorcing me? Another roar of anger. Before I could react, he bent one knee, knelt on the floor, and grabbed my neck. A sharp pain wrapped around my throat. I couldn't breathe. You want to leave now. What do you think this place is? A place you can come and go as you please. Serena grabbed his hand, trying to stop him. Wouldn't it be better if she divorced you? Then we could be together forever. Don't you want that, Ethan? Her voice was filled with anxiety. Serena was terrified, I'm sure, terrified that I would change my mind, so she was desperately seizing this opportunity. But Ethan didn't listen. He just shoved Serena away without a shred of mercy. Serena fell to the ground, the sudden movement messing up her hair completely. I couldn't breathe, and I patted his hand, trying to get him to let go. Then let go. He suddenly let out a cackle, forcefully throwing me against the table and looking down at me. I couldn't read the emotion in his eyes. Come on, don't you want a divorce? His long fingers tapped on the table, making a crisp sound. I looked over. Then drink all the alcohol on this table and I'll divorce you. But I'm allergic to alcohol. Ethan, did we really have to go this far? I swallowed all my tears and asked him, Ethan, do I have to drink it? Ethan, do you remember? Do you remember the consequences when I accidentally had one sip of alcohol back then? Do you remember that time my allergic reaction was so bad I almost died? Do you remember that year you knelt by my hospital bed, held my hand tightly, and promised to protect me from harm for the rest of my life? But why? When did it all start? When did you become the source of all my pain? I couldn't count, couldn't see through it. I trembling picked up a bottle of wine from the table, brought it to my lips, and prepared to drink it all in one go. Are you crazy? Do you have a death wish? Crash! The bottle shattered on the floor. Under the lights, it looked like broken glass. Ethan was furious. He pulled me up from the floor. A cold sneer, the anger in his eyes was roiling. You want to divorce me that badly? You'd rather die? Don't you know your own body? Are you trying to get my attention with this again? Grace, you've really done enough. His words were forceful. He seemed utterly disgusted with me. The last sentence was squeezed out from between his teeth. I shook my head, my body feeling terrifyingly weak. I used my hand to pick up my bag that had fallen on the floor. I didn't look at him. I'm serious this time. Whatever your conditions are, just name them, as long as you sign the divorce papers. This time, I was truly determined to leave. I just wanted a divorce. I wasn't going back. He laughed, put his hands in his pockets, grabbed me with one hand, and threw me onto the booth. The next second, he pressed me down, caging me with his arms. His fingers traced the corner of my eye, his own eyes full of mockery. Fine, anything goes, right? He gritted his teeth, nodded, and looked to the other side. All right then, Mr. Sinclair happens to be free these days. This woman is quite beautiful. To show my sincerity, she's all yours. Have fun with her. I followed his gaze and saw the Mr. Sinclair. He was talking about a greasy-looking middle-aged man with a full beard and hair slicked back so shiny it looked wet. Despite his efforts, an overwhelming sense of sleaze emanated from him. I shook my head frantically, grabbing his tie and begging him. Is this the only way? Ethan, the last word was drawn out, a pleading note in it. Heh, didn't you say anything goes? His brow twitched, still mocking me. Not so much backbone after all. I gritted my teeth and nodded. Fine, you promised me. Mr. Sinclair in the corner broke into a satisfied smile, rubbing his hands together. Oh, CEO Hawthorne, you're too kind, really. Ethan stood there, motionless. Tears streamed from the corners of my eyes down my cheeks, hot against my skin. I let Mr. Sinclair drag me away, my mind a complete blank. A waiter led us, step by step, into a private room. The moment he stepped out, the lights went out with a click. Mr. Sinclair fumbled his way towards the bed, his chuckles echoing in the dark. Even in the blackness, I felt utterly disgusted. The sound of his shuffling footsteps stepped on my heart, one by one. I sobbed so scared. CEO Hawthorne gave you to me, so there's nothing I can do. I wanted to cry, but I couldn't. My tears had all run dry. Ethan, why are you so cruel? I once loved you so much. Why are you doing this to me? What did all these years mean? The fear of the darkness, mixed with the disgust in my heart, struck me again and again, as if trying to crush my heart into pieces. 2 minutes later, Mr. Sinclair lunged at me like a hungry wolf. Rip, a bone-chilling cold seeped in through the torn collar of my dress. My clothes were ripped. Bang, the door was kicked open. The lights flickered back on. In that instant, Ethan looked panicked. He looked like he wanted to kill that Mr. Sinclair. He himself didn't dare to touch her, yet this man dared to touch his woman, dared to rip her clothes. His assistant was desperately trying to hold him back. Young master, the contract isn't signed yet. My dress was torn, my shoulders and neck exposed. I instinctively curled into a ball, tears streaming down my face uncontrollably. It was Ethan. I heard him roaring. Get out, did I say you could touch her? How many times do I have to say it? Are you deaf? I told you to scare her if you dared to lay a finger on her today. Believe me, I'll kill you, get out. Ethan's eyes were bloodshot as he ran over, checking me over and over to see if I was hurt. He cupped my face with both hands, his eyes scanning me. Are you okay? He didn't touch you, did he? His thumbs brushed against my cheeks, wiping away my tears. Behind Ethan, Mr. Sinclair's figure scrambled away in panic. I shook my head, staring at him in a daze. I seemed to remember that year in the bar when I was being harassed. He had taken my hand and led me through the crowd. When someone said a crude word to me, he beat the man half to death. Later, he lay beside me, his face stained with tears, repeating over and over, "It's my fault. I didn't protect you." But now, he was the one who had personally tried to send me to another man's bed. Time had passed. They could never go back. But for a moment, the dense panic in his eyes made me feel a flicker of something. I thought he had remembered our past, thought he was finally willing to let me go, finally willing to sign the divorce papers. But he hadn't. None of it. Touching, isn't it? This was all an act, he said. Hero saves the damsel in distress. Don't all women fall for that? A person like you, I have to torture you myself, watch you suffer with my own eyes. I stood barefoot on the floor, my hands clutching the hem of my torn dress. The glass reflected my pale, haggard face. Ethan, just let me go. Impossible, you know what I want. Ethan sat on the corner of the bed. He had just washed his hands and was slowly drying them. You satisfy me and I'll sign. He sat in the light, his dark eyes staring at me without any concealment, his gaze hot and humiliating. What do you want, Ethan? You can't do this to me. He stood up, walked the few steps to me, and looked down at me, smoothing my hair. Why can't I? To divorce me, you were willing to sleep with someone else. You can't sleep with me? The smile on Ethan's face vanished. The lights flickered and then went out. The room was plunged into complete darkness. He leaned close to my ear. Come on, satisfy me. I fell into a fiery hot chest, his hand supporting my lower back, scorching. I heard his muffled grunt as I clumsily fumbled with the collar of his shirt. His lips were the first to press against mine. So hot, everything was hot, so hot it made me numb. His searing breath teased my senses, bit by bit. In the darkness, I heard his rhythmic breathing. It sprayed across my neck in a dense mist. His lips traced a path from my tear-dampened eyes downwards, his fingers toying with the hair at my temples, like a child who had been wronged. In a daze, I thought I heard him ask, "Why don't you love me? Why are you leaving me?" But in the next second, he added another name. Serena. Oh, he wasn't talking about me. He was drunk. And when drunk, the truth comes out. Of course, he was thinking of his beloved Serena. How much did he love her, that even at a time like this, his mind was full of her? In all our years of marriage, how many nights had we shared a bed but dreamt of different people? The next morning, Ethan viciously threw the signed divorce agreement at my face. And, of course, a slap. He said, "If you're going to get out, then get out now. The Hawthorne family won't keep you. Once you're gone, don't ever come back." The door slammed shut, without a single shred of hesitation. In the living room, he took a call. I couldn't hear what the person on the other end said. I heard him fall silent for a couple of seconds, then reply, "What was I supposed to do?" She was willing to give herself to someone else just to divorce me. I had to sign it. She'll calm down once she's done throwing a tantrum. It's not like she's really going to leave. I clutched my still aching right cheek, staring at the closed door. I don't know if I was saying it to him or to myself. I whispered, "Ethan, this time I'm really serious." Ethan, I suddenly wonder if one day, after I'm really gone, you get your memory back and learn the truth, how will you react? The rain was heavy that day. I dragged my suitcase and boarded a train, leaving the city behind. The wheels of the suitcase made a harsh, scraping sound on the ground. My best friend Jasmine called, "Are you sure you won't regret this? Marrying Ethan, having a child with him, wasn't that your dream for all these years? If you leave, what about Ethan? And your son? Are you just going to abandon them? And Ethan, would he really let you go? He loved you so much back then." Jasmine's words trailed off. Yes, he loved me so much back then. And now it had come to this. When we first got together, he couldn't bear to see me cry, couldn't stand being away from me. He wanted to be with me 24/7. The sky was a gloomy gray. I replied in a low voice, "I don't regret it. My son will have a new mother, and Ethan has already found the one he loves. Everything will pass." Looking back on these years, it was all so ridiculous. I had stumbled my way into marrying Ethan, carried our child for 10 months, but I got nothing in return. My husband didn't love me, and my son hated me, but it didn't seem to matter anymore. In the final moments before boarding the train, I looked out at the surging crowd and said silently, "Northwood, let everything here just go with the wind." As the conductor's voice announced, "Hello, welcome aboard train number XXX, next stop Northwood," our story was over. The train swayed back and forth. The carriage wasn't crowded. I could faintly hear a few people snoring, a few others laughing and chatting. I leaned against the window, my gaze fixed on the distance. Ethan's parting words echoed in my ears. "Grace, I'm telling you, you're the one who wanted the divorce. You don't ever have to come back. I'm telling you, don't you ever regret this. If you do, I won't have an ounce of pity for you." He told me not to regret it, told me not to look back. His eyes were so cold, I couldn't see a single trace of love in them anymore. It was true. 3 years of marriage, even if there were feelings, they would have been worn down to nothing by the daily grind. Besides, when he married me back then, it probably wasn't of his own free will. I smiled. When a person has lost all their emotions and desires, how can they regret anything? I couldn't blame him for not believing me. When we were younger, we used to argue all the time. I had a temper, and every time we fought, I'd threaten to break up, dragging my suitcase and leaving. And every time, he would swallow his pride, chase me across a city, and desperately apologize. One time, we had a huge fight. To apologize, he took a long flight, stood at the airport for 3 days and 3 nights waiting for me. When he saw me, he just smiled and walked over, handing me a bouquet of roses. There was no resentment, no regret on his face, only pure happiness. Since we got married, I've probably threatened to break up with him 800 times. I rested my head against the window. The scenery outside changed like a revolving lantern. The train swayed, and soon I fell asleep. After arriving in Northwood, I used the money I had saved over the years to open a small shop. It was a flower and tea shop. It wasn't wildly successful, but it was enough to support a basic life. I renovated the shop inside and out and gave it a nice name, Petals Tea. The afternoon sun was very warm. I would lie in the hanging chair and sleep, often for half the day. The sun, filtering through the gaps in the leaves, cast dappled shadows on me. It was warm and cozy, adding a touch of pleasantness to my days. My friend said, "What will you do when you're old and have no one to take care of you? You're all alone now. Will you really not regret this later?" You spent the first half of your life so in love with Ethan. Have you really let him go now? And your son with Ethan, have you let him go too? I smiled and nodded. Forgive others and forgive yourself. After thinking about it for a long time, I went to an orphanage the next day and adopted a little girl. The little girl shook her head, her two small braids swinging, her eyes seeming to hold a galaxy of stars. I loved that look on her face. It was like how most people are in their childhood, full of infinite hope and anticipation for life. I named her Hope, Hope Miller. My life had been one of upheaval and stumbling, ultimately ending in emptiness. For the rest of her life, I hope she finds peace and serenity, and I hope the same for myself. From then on, I was no longer the only one lying in the hanging chair, watching the stars. And so, on my 5th day in Northwood, I finally had a child of my own. In the depths of my dreams, at midnight, I often dreamed of when I was 17, when I fell head over heels in love with him. He was the popular guy at school back then, handsome, smart. In a novel, he'd be the male lead everyone loves for chapters on end. And me, I had no money and a plain, ordinary face. In the haze of adolescence, a girl doesn't know what love is. She just follows blindly behind the dazzling ones, step by step. Every evening, when the last rays of the setting sun spread across the school's sports field, a crowd of little girls would rush to watch him play. I became one of them. I was often lost in the crowd, moving with the tide, occasionally stealing a glance at him, and feeling that it was all worth it. I don't know if it was fate or a curse. That year, he walked off the court, drenched in sweat, pushed through the crowd, and took the water bottle from my hand, a smile even gracing his eyebrows. My heart skipped a beat, completely caught off guard. From that day on, my youth was filled by one person. I didn't know why he chose ordinary me. After we started dating, I realized we were not from the same world at all. He was the dazzling young master of the Hawthorne Group, and I was just an ordinary girl, with no distinguished family background and no outstanding talents. I only remember one night when he was drunk, he pinned me down, his eyes red, and whispered in my ear that he wanted to marry me. Everything that followed happened too fast. He loved me very much. I was like a princess he held in the palm of his hand, always surrounded by love. I thought we could walk on happily forever, until that year, when he suddenly had a car accident. When we were engaged, we rehearsed the whole ceremony so many times, preparing for nearly half a month, but in the end, it all went up in smoke. On the day of our engagement, something suddenly came up at the company. He rushed off, patting my hand as he left and comforting me, "It'll be quick. I'll be right back." I smiled and nodded, sitting in the hotel waiting for him. I counted on my fingers over and over. He told me to count to 10,000, and by the time I was done, he would appear before me. I believed him, but he broke his promise. On his way back from the company, he got into a car accident. A severe concussion, and one of his kidneys failed. When I received the call, he had already been taken to the hospital. "Hello, miss, do you know Ethan Hawthorne? We see you're his emergency contact. He's at the hospital now and needs surgery." The bouquet in my hands fell to the floor. I stood there, my mind a complete blank. The wind howled in my ears. I ran out of the engagement venue as fast as I could. The scene was in chaos, so loud. The host stood frozen on the stage. When I saw him again, he was lying quietly in bed, his hands covered in blood. In his right hand, he was tightly clutching a beautiful diamond ring. Sunlight slanted through the hospital window, hitting his tousled bangs. He grabbed my hand, gently brushed off the unmelted snowflakes from my clothes, and with all his strength, smiled at me. "You said you liked it, so I bought it for you." I took the ring with trembling hands. It was the one he had promised to give me. The diamond sparkled with a rainbow of colors in the sunlight, but I had no heart to look at it. Tears streamed down my face. Seeing me cry, he frantically clutched my hand. Even though he was grimacing in pain, he said, don't cry, I'm not going to die, I still have to marry you." But later, he forgot our past and he forgot me. Severe concussion. He remembered everyone, but he forgot me. The person he loved most became his idealized love, Serena Rivers. Our past, all those days and months we shared, were wiped clean from his memory. I stayed by his bed, my eyes swollen from crying. When he woke up, all he said was a faint, "Who are you? Who am I?" He didn't recognize me. He had forgotten everything about us. Outside the hospital room, Mrs. Hawthorne found me. You love him so much and your blood types match. He needs a kidney transplant. 1 kidney. Are you willing? I was young then, but I understood the cost of losing a kidney. But I had my mission and my sick mother to support, and I truly did love him. I had no choice. I agreed. Mrs. Hawthorne's $3 million. It was a down payment. That $3 million meant our relationship was now tainted with the stench of money, with self-interest. Perhaps from that moment on, my love was destined to be impure. But I really, really needed the money. Ethan had forgotten me. The mission, which should have been successful, was reset to 0, with a 3-year time limit. If I couldn't succeed within 3 years, all my emotions and desires would be stripped away. Mrs. Hawthorne agreed to let me stay by his side, but I was forbidden from telling anyone about Ethan's kidney transplant. From that day on, I began to take care of him day and night. I always believed that we had loved each other so passionately that one day he would remember me. I waited foolishly like that, but I waited for nothing. I didn't wait for Ethan to remember me, nor did I ever hear him say, "I love you" again. Serena Rivers returned to the country. At the same time, I found out I was pregnant. At that time, Ethan's heart and eyes were all for Serena. In the year he loved Serena the most, we got married. This was no different from breaking up a loving couple, no different from being the third party. I couldn't blame him for hating me. Back then, the media created a huge storm. In the midst of that public opinion battle, I was torn to shreds, but I had no way out. Mrs. Hawthorne said she would arrange our wedding. The Hawthorne family's child had to remain in the family. Otherwise, I wouldn't be able to walk out that door. I was an ordinary person. I couldn't fight against Mrs. Hawthorne, nor could I control my own selfish desires. I nodded and agreed. Unprepared, I became the young madam of the Hawthorne family, the mother of a child. But he no longer loved me. All he ever said was, "You despicable, shameless woman. For money, you're really capable of anything." He called me disgusting, shameless, and a hypocrite. He said I was a marriage scammer. After the wedding, Ethan didn't come home day after day. The time that followed was so long, and I never again waited for him to say, "I love you." Until I lost all hope. Until the system stripped me of all my emotions and desires. Lately, I've been dreaming of him more and more, but the memories are growing fainter. Except for a blurry face in my dreams, I don't think I can even remember what he looks like anymore. When I woke up again, it was late in the evening. The sun was low on the horizon, its last rays filtering through the blinds. The photo on the table was bathed in a golden glow. That was the last photo I had left. Perhaps the dreams were Grace's way of saying goodbye to her former self. One afternoon, I looked at the 20 missed calls and countless messages from my son on my phone. After a moment of silence, I blocked the familiar name. Far away in Aria City that day, Ethan came home from work as usual. He hadn't been home for 2 days and hadn't received a single call or message from Grace. The house was empty and vast. Not a single light was on, giving it an indescribable coldness. He subconsciously looked inside. Every day at this time, Grace would hear him come home and would come bouncing out to see him, taking his coat from his hands. The table would already be set with a fragrant meal. Grace would always smile, tell him to wash his hands, and urge him to eat while it was hot. But today, there was nothing. Ethan didn't pay it much mind. Perhaps he had spoken too harshly that day, and Grace was angry, deliberately not cooking, deliberately not coming out to greet him. At this thought, he still felt an inexplicable sense of irritation. He put his shoes aside, walked inside, sat on the sofa, and scrolled through the chat interface on his phone. He scrolled to Grace. The chat box was still completely silent. Ethan hadn't messaged her either. He suddenly felt incredibly tired. He had worked overtime at the company for 2 days, and his eyes were unspeakably sore. He leaned crookedly against the sofa and fell asleep. When he woke up, it was already noon. And Grace hadn't woken him up as she usually did, hadn't patted him and told him to go eat breakfast. He panicked. In that instant, he rushed forward like a madman. The door creaked open. Grace's room was empty. The few remaining items were neatly arranged. But the wedding photos, the family pictures, and all her clothes were gone. Stuart, where's the madam? Where did Grace go?" Stuart walked in with a bowl of freshly heated porridge and ran right into Ethan. "The miss has left. Didn't she tell you?" "Left? Where did she go?" In that moment, Ethan felt his limbs go weak. He was so afraid that Stuart would say the words, "She's left for good." He was so afraid that in the end, he would discover that Grace was truly heartbroken this time, that she was really not coming back. The miss didn't say. She took her things before she left and said she was going to stay somewhere else for a few days. The assistant heard the commotion and ran down from upstairs. "Mr. Hawthorne, what's wrong?" Ethan violently grabbed the assistant's collar and emphasized, his voice suddenly rising. He felt his heart beating rapidly, a piece of it feeling like it had been ripped out. "Find her for me, find the madam. If you don't find her today, no one is allowed to sleep." The phone rang at the most inopportune moment. Ethan took it out, and Serena's delicate voice came through. "Ethan, you haven't come to see me in so long. I really miss you. Get lost, I don't have time for you. If you fucking call me again, you can fucking go to hell." The last few words scared the assistant, who was frantically searching through flight information, so much that he couldn't help but take several steps back. He watched as his young master threw the phone on the ground and rushed out of the villa. His son came out with a craft project he had just finished, waving it for Ethan to see. But Ethan's glare scared him into wailing. Stuart picked up the boy and told him to be quiet. Everyone knew in their hearts that if the madam went missing, their young master would go crazy. If the madam couldn't be found, their young master would probably go to hell and back to bring her home. The young master didn't say it, but they all knew. Stuart sighed. Young people these days, they love each other so much in their hearts, but they have to torture each other. Then they regret it when one of them leaves. At 8 in the evening, the assistant contacted all the airports, train stations, and highway exits in Aria City, combing through all the passenger information. Only then did he find Grace's information. Grace was gone. She had gone to Northwood. The ticket information showed that she had left yesterday morning. She had been gone for a day and a night. He handed the information to Ethan with trembling hands. The assistant was scared too. He was afraid Ethan would fly into a rage and accidentally hurt himself. He knew how crazy Ethan would be if he found out Grace had left. Others didn't know, but he had personally seen his young master carefully pick up a photo Grace had dropped, seen him treasure it like a jewel in his inner pocket. He had seen his young master look at Grace's back with a pained expression after saying harsh words. He understood his young master's heart, and he understood the unspoken love his young master had for Grace. "Young master, she's gone. Tonight's train is already what? Already full. Already full." Ethan seemed to go numb. He sat in the dim living room without turning on the lights, without speaking. He opened a bottle of champagne on the table, poured 2 glasses, and slowly drank. A cold laugh. "Do you think I deserve this? I obviously love her so much. I know I'm wrong, but I can't control it. But my mother said it was Serena who saved me that year. I have to love her." The assistant didn't dare to speak, letting Ethan hold on to him, occasionally offering a word of comfort. "It's okay. Miss Miller loves you so much, she'll forgive you." The assistant didn't dare to say it, but he knew everything that had happened that year. He knew that Serena had taken the credit for what Grace had done. The kidney was always from Grace, but there was nothing they could do. Mrs. Hawthorne had forbidden them from speaking, and no one dared to disobey. For so many years, they had watched their young master struggle, caught in a moral dilemma, tormented until he was unrecognizable. Mrs. Hawthorne looked down on Miss Miller. Even they, the staff, could see it. Miss Rivers' return to the country was all part of Mrs. Hawthorne's plan from the beginning. Perhaps this situation was destined from the start. There was nothing to be done. In wealthy families, strategic marriage alliances were a common occurrence. The illustrious Serena Rivers versus the ordinary to a fault Grace Miller. Perhaps for the sake of his future, anyone would choose Serena. Hope didn't talk much. In our quiet days, we would just sit together, back to back. I found a primary school for her nearby. My daily routine changed from watching sunsets to making her delicious food, waiting for her to come home, skipping in the last rays of the evening sun. Hope was very well behaved. She never complained about the nutritional soups I made, and she would never push me away and say she didn't love me. She would secretly prepare little surprises for me, but was too shy to express it. We had a tacit understanding. I wouldn't expose her little secrets, and she wouldn't complain about my care. Gradually, Hope started to lean on me and act cute, and she would share her joys with me. She would always shake her head and tell me about scoring 100 on a test, or seeing a cute puppy after school, or how beautiful the sunset was on a particular day. My own broken childhood heart seemed to be pieced back together, bit by bit, through her descriptions. I think I was starting to love life again. One day, I came back from the supermarket with a cake and found Hope sitting alone on the stone steps in front of the door, looking a little unhappy. When she saw me, she forced a smile, her small head bobbing, and pointed a meek finger behind me. "Mom, they're looking for you." I turned around, our eyes met. I was met with Ethan's unreadable gaze. He was standing to the side, leaning on his hand, his eyes seeming to shine with a light I couldn't decipher. He waved at me. Under the streetlight, Ethan smiled. "I finally found you." My son ran over and hugged me tightly. "Mom, why did you leave me? Today is my birthday. You used to ask me what I wanted for my birthday weeks in advance. Why didn't you ask this time? Mom, I miss you so much." My son's small face was covered in tears. When he saw the cake in my hand, his eyes lit up. "Mom, is that cake for me?" But I remembered he didn't like cake. And I remembered that they were the ones who didn't want me. Why was it my fault now? He used to complain that the cakes I bought him were ugly, that I didn't understand kids. My son used to say, "The Transformers Auntie Serena gets me our way better than anything from you, you bad woman." I curved my lips into a small smile and said nothing more. Hope's small hands were tightly clutching her skirt, her thoughts a mystery. I walked over, took her small hand in mine, and said slowly, "No, today is Hope's birthday. This cake is for Hope." I knelt down, stroked Hope's little head, clipped a pretty hairpin into her hair, and gently tapped her nose. "Happy birthday, my little Hope." I ended up letting them into the house and cooked a big meal. I handed chopsticks to Hope, but my son snatched them away. His eyes welled up with tears as he asked me, "Mom, why didn't you give them to me first?" "I'm your son." Hope didn't dare to speak, hiding behind me, staring at the food on the table. I silently took the chopsticks from my son's hand, threw them aside, and got a new pair for Hope. I said faintly, "Hope, if someone takes your things, you have to remember to take them back. Mom will always be your strongest supporter." Her little face suddenly broke into a bright smile. She squeezed my hand back and nodded vigorously. I made a lot of nutritional soup. Hope wasn't like my son. She grew up in an orphanage and was malnourished. I had been trying to build up her nutrition without a break. For her birthday today, I had made a variety of dishes. But my son, who had always hated nutritional soup, looked up at me. "Mom, I want some too. Can you make it for me from now on?" I shook my head. "I have my own life now." I told them that Hope was from an orphanage, that I hadn't given birth to another child. During the meal, Ethan's gaze never left me. His eyes were filled with tears. "Grace, I miss you so much, so much. Come back with me, stop messing around, okay? I'm begging you." "I was wrong before, I admit it, okay? Can we just pretend it all never happened?" he said. I didn't believe him. "You missed me so much, yet you waited a whole year to come find me? You missed me so much, why say it now?" "Ethan, don't you think it's all too little, too late?" I put a piece of meat in Hope's bowl and smiled. "We're already divorced, Ethan." He wanted me to forget, to pretend none of it ever happened. He said it was all his fault. But now I didn't care about right or wrong. I didn't care about them anymore. Love or no love, it didn't matter to me. You can't live in the past forever. I have a new life now. I looked up, my eyes firm. "Ethan, let it all go." In that moment, Ethan had rehearsed his lines many times. What was he going to say? That he had been locked up by Mrs. Hawthorne? That for the past year, he had been forced to stay away from her? Or that he had always cared about her, that it was all an act before? He couldn't say it. Would she believe him? She would think he was acting. Her eyes were calm and serene. She was still smiling, but she didn't love him anymore. That night the rain was heavy, just like the night before I left Aria City. They didn't leave. Ethan knelt in the rain, begging me over and over. "Grace, I admit I was wrong before. Can you come back with me? We can start over. Are you happy wandering around with this little girl?" I stroked Hope's head and smiled. "I am very happy." I wanted to pull my son into the house, but he refused. He clung to Ethan's hand, his small face full of stubbornness. In that, he was just like his father. Always had been. Not loving me was like his father, and so was his stubbornness. I laughed to myself, took a coat from the closet, and draped it over my son. My son cried, clutching the coat tightly, tears streaming down his face like broken pearls. "Mom's coat can't get wet. If it gets wet, Mom won't like it anymore." Mom won't like it anymore. He was trying to win back my motherly love with these gestures, but he didn't know I had lost the ability to love them. Back then, they were the ones who pushed me into the abyss. Now, they stood at the edge, reaching down to pull me up, asking if I was happy. But it was all too late. I don't know how long my son and Ethan knelt in the rain. I just treated them like pitiful strangers, handing them an umbrella, then a raincoat, and finally closing the door. No matter how hard it rained, people had to sleep. My past was not glorious, and I had no desire to remember it. From then on, Ethan was surprisingly persistent. He bought a house in Northwood, right next to my tea shop. He said, "No matter what, as long as you don't agree to come back, I'll stay here." Every day, he would bring my son to the tea shop, and at sunset, they would hurry back. The tea shop was often filled with flowers, cakes, and all sorts of little gifts he sent. But I was no longer young. I didn't love flowers or cakes anymore. Hope was too little to eat sweets, so most of the cakes Ethan sent, I gave to passers-by. My son was very well behaved. He didn't fight over things like he used to. He always tried to please me, saying, "Mom, can you make me another bowl of nutritional soup? I want more." Sometimes I would nod and agree, but it was no longer because I loved him. The love I once had was long gone, worn away by time. What goes around comes around. I was merely repaying his father's kindness in helping out, nothing more. Perhaps afraid of angering me, my son started to take care of Hope. I sometimes saw the glint of tears in his eyes, or the way his lips would suddenly pout when he saw me being nice to Hope. But I always pretended not to see, and I didn't care if he was sad. I didn't know how the Hawthorne Group could allow its heir to spend so much time on such unimportant things, or how they dared to let the heir of the Hawthorne bloodline be raised in such a small town. Just as I didn't understand how he could give up his favorite amusement parks, his favorite toys. There was no bustling city life here, no friends from the big city. My son had always been spoiled. I wondered how he managed to live in this small town, but there were no answers. Ethan continued to work like a diligent little bee, taking on all the tasks at the tea shop. My son also hopped around, helping me out. I suddenly found it ridiculous. If the media ever found out that the heir to the world-renowned Hawthorne Group was selling bubble tea in a small alley, it would probably be another huge news story. Sometimes, I would just stare at his busy back and get lost in thought. After all, he was the one who had once dazzled my entire youth. He would occasionally turn around, steal a glance at me, and when our eyes met, he would put his hands in his pockets with a smug look. I knew it. You still love me. No. I love the youth I can never get back. Life in the alley was too peaceful. When it wasn't raining, we would lean back in our chairs, watch the sunset, and listen to the wind. This was like the future I had dreamed of so many times. Ethan asked me, if I hadn't deliberately provoked you back then, would you have left? If I hadn't signed those divorce papers, would we have had a future? If I had apologized to you that morning, could everything have started over? But there were no ifs, no what-ifs. I looked at the endless sea of clouds and smiled. I don't know, it's all in the past. It was all in the past. Perhaps life is just a series of stacked regrets. No one can always have it good, and no one can always get what they want. Perhaps one afternoon, you realize you've forgotten the faces of the people you once cared about. The things that mattered have become things you've let go of, and the most unforgettable promises are no longer remembered. Ethan was getting ready to leave. The Hawthorne Group wouldn't let Ethan stay here for too long. He was the CEO of a company, the heir to a family. Sooner or later, he had to go back and continue his life. We were not on the same path. The days passed so quickly. One afternoon, he walked over to me, having just hung up the phone. He stared at me for a long time, then handed me a bouquet of flowers and said, "Grace, I have to go. I might be gone for a long time this time." I nodded. Hearing this news, I felt no sadness at all, but rather a sense of relief. With him gone, no one would bother me, and I could finally do what I loved. With my son gone, no one would bother Hope, and Hope could do her homework in peace. Before he left, he asked me many times if I wanted to go with him. This time, are you really not leaving? I'll be good to you. We can go back to Aria City together. I promise I'll make you very happy. I held up Hope's little hand and waved, pointing to the tea shop behind me. Ethan, I have my own life now. I'm already very happy. He said he wouldn't remarry, that there would always be a place for me in his heart. He also said that once things were settled, he would come back. I smiled and said, "As you wish." My son didn't want to go. He clung to Ethan's clothes, crying his heart out. "Dad, why? Why do we have to go home? I want to be with Mom. I want to be with Mom forever and ever." Then he asked me, "Mom, why don't you want me anymore? I'll be good from now on. I'll drink the nutritional soup you give me, and I won't complain about the little cakes you make. Mom, I'm begging you, Mom. Please, Mom, come home with me. I don't want to be a child without a mother." I tucked a piece of candy into my son's pocket and waved goodbye to him. Ethan's face was cold as he ordered Stuart to pull the boy into the car. I watched the car disappear at the end of the alley, recalling the things Ethan had said these past few days. Ethan had said a lot. He said he was sorry, that he never thought I would actually leave, and he never expected this outcome. He said he had regretted it many times, but he could never let go of his pride or bring himself to offer a proper apology. I had always known. He thought I was too ordinary, that I couldn't live up to the praise he received, and that I wasn't worthy of standing by his side. But when he learned I had settled in Northwood, he truly panicked. He found that he had no interest in doing anything else, that his mind was constantly filled with a familiar figure. He said he waited by his phone every day, hoping for a sudden message from me or even just a good morning. But there was nothing. His phone was unnervingly quiet, and I never showed a hint of concern. He tried to distract himself, going to bars to meet new people, staying up late calling Serena. But gradually, he realized that he had really fallen in love with me, that he really couldn't forget. He would pick up his phone, type and delete, "How are you?" over and over, contemplating for who knows how long, only to be met with a red exclamation mark. I teased him about it. "You were one of the top guys in our high school. If you announced you were single, a lot of people would be interested." He fell silent, his eyes red, and stubbornly pulled me into his arms. "I really know I was wrong. Can you come back?" He also talked about our son. He said he resented our son, that he had blamed him many times. In the days after I left, he hated our son. He hated that he would cry over the smallest things, and he hated that he would always be crying for his mother. Because every time, the psychological defenses he had built up would be shattered, and just when he was about to forget me, he would be reminded all over again. It wasn't until a year had passed that he finally found an opportunity to escape Mrs. Hawthorne's surveillance and took a 5-hour flight out of Aria City. He said he had imagined what it would be like to see me again many times, that I would run over and hug him happily, or that I would rush over and plant a kiss on his forehead like I used to. But none of that happened. I was just holding a strange girl's hand, smiling faintly, with no hint of joy or emotion. In that moment, he knew I didn't love him anymore. He felt that it was all too little, too late. I also wondered, if he hadn't said those harsh words to me that day, if he hadn't thrown the divorce papers at me, would we have had a future? But it didn't matter anymore. All of it was in the past. My heart no longer cared for him. Whether he came or went, it had nothing to do with me. We were like two parallel lines, extending infinitely, never to intersect again. After Ethan left, the neighbors started gossiping. "Hey, young lady, why didn't you get together with that handsome guy? I saw how good he was to you. Why weren't you willing? You're not getting any younger. It's time to find a partner." I held Hope's hand and replied with a smile. "He was just a passerby, staying for a couple of days. He's left now and won't be back. When the time is right, it will happen." Hope shook her head, and for the first time in days, a happy smile spread across her face. She snuggled into my arms. "Mom, I thought you were going to leave me. I thought you were going to go with them and not like Hope anymore." I knelt down, pinched her little cheek, and gently ruffled her hair. "Mom will always be with you. Be good, Hope. Mom could never bear to leave you." After the commotion, my life returned to normal. The tea shop got a little busier, gaining some reputation. I hired an employee to help me look after the shop. When the shop was busy, I'd work, and when things quieted down, I'd still sit in the lounge chair, enjoying the cool air, watching the sunset, and feeling the evening breeze. My son often sent me messages. "Mom, I got a 100 on my test today. Mom, you know what? I learned how to make nutritional soup by myself today. Mom, I was really good today. I helped Dad with the chores. Mom, Dad said if I get a 100 on my final exams this time, he'll take me to see you. Mom, I miss you so much. Can you come see me just once? Can you come back and see me?" I scrolled through the chat history, one message after another, but my heart felt nothing. A person's heart is too small to hold many people. I always remembered the past. I remembered how I used to take care of his every need, how I used to hold him in the palm of my hand, afraid he would get even the slightest scratch. I remembered how I would run far and wide to get him his favorite cake just because he said he liked it, only for him to knock it to the ground. And I remembered him clinging to Serena's hand, his face contorted with rage as he yelled at me, "You bad woman, you don't deserve to be my mother. I want Auntie Serena to be my mom. It would be better if you were dead. I hate you the most." Perhaps people are all like this. You only learn to cherish something after you've lost it. Now that those days were gone forever, he felt a sense of loss, a sense of nostalgia. Kids are the same. I silently turned off my phone, not replying to a single message. I admit, I no longer loved my son. I didn't care if he was improving, if he was healthy. I didn't worry if he was well-fed or warm. At a Hawthorne Group press conference, Ethan's words, spoken under the glare of spotlights, shocked the entire media world. "I will be relinquishing my inheritance rights. I have more important things to do. When I was younger, I was too arrogant and missed out on many people and many things. I want to do everything in my power to make amends." Ethan's words shot to the top of the trending topics. Mrs. Hawthorne was so angry she left a comment under the news. "This is all nonsense. Delete it," my friend Jasmine called too. "Are you really not going back? It's not easy raising a child on your own. If you had someone to take care of you. Ethan is rich and handsome, and now he's so devoted to you. Why don't you give it a try?" Why not give it a try? Why not go back? Yes, that's a good question. I had thought about it many times myself. But when a person's heart is dead, when you're completely disappointed in someone, how can you have the confidence to piece everything back together, bit by bit? How can you face it all again? In this world, perhaps no one is without their scars. But no matter what, I didn't want to go back. I interrupted my friend, my voice tinged with determination. "No, I've already found someone I love. I once thought the system had erased all my emotions and desires. But gradually, I found that I would worry about Hope. I would care about her every move, and on some afternoons, when I saw that person's smile, a strange warmth would fill my heart. That's when I understood. The system had only erased all my feelings for Ethan and my son. My emotions and desires were still there. Julian Shaw, the top student from this small alley, an elite programmer from a top-tier university. When I met him, I no longer believed in love, no longer believed in the kind of true love that lasts a lifetime. I was also afraid of getting married, afraid of how it would affect Hope's life. It seemed that countless problems stood between us, and it seemed that we were destined to miss each other at some point. I would always say with a smile, "I already have my own child, I've had my own family. You have a better future ahead of you. You shouldn't waste your time on me." But he wouldn't listen. He would just wave the tools in his hand and work even harder. "As long as I like you, nothing else is a problem." He had the tenacity of youth. A young man in his 20s, full of vigor, once he set his mind on something, he would fight for it with all his might. He pursued me for a year, as diligently as if it were his job. Finally, one day when I came home, in the darkness, he took my hand. I don't know if it was because the summer night was too quiet, but for a moment, I could hear my own heart pounding. His eyes were red as he pulled me into his arms, ruffling my hair and whispering in my ear. "Can you give me a chance? Just one. I really, really like you. I don't care about the gossip, I don't care about the past, I just like you." I was finally overwhelmed. In the evening breeze, I nodded my head as if in a trance. He said, "I never believed in fate. It's all fake. If I say we have a connection, we have a connection." That day, he was as happy as a child. He told everyone he met, "Grace is my girlfriend, Grace is my girlfriend." He held my hand and we ran through the alleys, stepping on our shadows, step by step, a smile gracing even his eyebrows. I asked Hope if she liked Julian, if she would feel uncomfortable if he became her father. But Hope just looked up at me and asked, "Mom, do you like Uncle Julian?" I didn't answer. She suddenly threw herself into my arms. "Mom, if you like him, I like him. If Mom is happy, Hope will be happy too." That's when I realized what it felt like to be loved. That the people who truly love you sincerely want you to be happy. In the end, Ethan couldn't go to find Grace. He was kept under watch by his mother for 3 years. How could the Hawthorne family produce such a worthless son? Are you trying to kill me with anger? You were the one who didn't want her in the first place, and now what are you doing? You've lost both the lady and the battle. Mrs. Hawthorne was furious, screaming at Ethan. Ethan slammed his hand on the table and yelled like a madman, "You think I don't know? You were the one who orchestrated the car accident. You were the one who made me lose my memory. How could you be so cruel to your own son? Did you ever ask for my opinion? Did you ever ask if I liked Serena Rivers? You let Grace give me a kidney. Did you ever ask if I was willing? If her suffering was the price for my life, I would rather die." He couldn't believe how his girl had endured all these years. He couldn't imagine the pain she must have felt every time he hurt her. After Grace left, Ethan always thought about their past. Her face, somehow, became clearer and clearer in his memory. One night, he woke up from a dream. The vast, empty room was left with only him. He touched the cold half of the bed and thought of those years. He remembered. He remembered everything. Tears streamed down his face, soaking the pillow. Outside the window, a cold moon hung in the sky. Ethan secretly ran away again. After so many years, stepping back into Northwood, the weather was still terribly cold. The streets were windy and damp, the pedestrians hurrying along. He followed the location on his phone to a villa. The villa was large and exquisitely beautiful, but no lights were on. As the sky grew darker, he huddled on the side of the road. While waiting, he thought of many things. He was afraid. He was afraid of how much could have changed over the years, afraid that it was all too late. Ethan stood in the distance. In the darkness, he saw two figures walking towards him, one tall, one short. He watched the girl joyfully skip along, holding the man's arm, all her defenses down, her smile so bright. He realized that she could be playful now, that she could stand on her tiptoes and kiss the man's forehead. But that man was no longer him. He curved his lips into a smile, hiding in a corner of the alley, his heart feeling as if it had been ripped out. He knew he was too late again. This time, he really had no chance. Just as he was about to turn away, the girl called out his name. She was holding the man's hand, skipping happily, her smile as warm and unrestrained as a spring breeze in April. "Ethan, what are you doing here? Want to come in for a bite?" Grace smiled, pulling the man beside her closer and tilting her head up proudly. "My handsome boyfriend, Julian." It was clear she was very happy. She didn't need him anymore. Ethan looked up at the sky and shook his head. "No, thanks, I won't eat. I was just passing by on a business trip." Grace couldn't understand why a business trip would bring him to this small alley, to such a remote little town. But before she could think about it, her face was gently pinched. Julian's eyes were smiling. "What are you thinking about now? Let's go home." She was going home. The streetlights cast a soft glow. Ethan watched the two of them leave, a small smile on his face. The story of Grace and him had come to an end. Grace was getting married. To the man she loved, Julian. On the day of the wedding, Ethan skipped all his meetings and stood alone in the audience. Watching the girl's happy smile on the stage, he took out his phone and posted a status update. "Wishing you well in the future." His son had grown up, become a little more sensible, but he still wailed in the middle of the night, crying for his mother, crying that he didn't want to be a child without a mom. Ethan's hands trembled as he raised his phone's camera and took a picture. Focus, click. Grace's happiness was frozen in that small photo. Ethan sent it to his son. "Your mother is very happy now. We shouldn't bother her anymore." In an instant, his vision blurred with tears. He remembered their wedding day. The girl in a pure white wedding dress, her eyes smiling, so beautiful it was breathtaking, her face full of surprise and shyness. In another instant, he saw the girl looking the same, standing on the stage, still smiling shyly, a blush on her cheeks. History has a stunning way of repeating itself. But now, the man standing on the stage was not him, and the one she loved was no longer him. After Grace left, Ethan investigated for half a year and finally uncovered the whole truth. The car accident that year was premeditated by Mrs. Hawthorne. To break them up, to make Ethan inherit the family business, and to form a strategic alliance with the Rivers family, Mrs. Hawthorne had gone to great lengths to stage an accident. She just hadn't expected that the accident would cost Ethan a kidney. He could never have imagined that the person he loved most, the source of all his suffering over the years, was his own mother. But later, man proposes, God disposes. He lost his memory and ended up marrying Grace. He forgot all those years with Grace, forgot her kindness, forgot the vows they had made to each other, word for word. He broke her heart. Mrs. Hawthorne cried too. She said she was scared. After Ethan's father passed away, she had raised Ethan all by herself. Everyone was eyeing the position. Ethan's uncles still held a large number of shares. Back then, as a middle-aged woman, she didn't know what to do. She had planned everything, even at the cost of her own son's happiness, and had endangered Grace. She knew she was wrong, but no matter how many times she could go back, she would do it again. She had no other choice, and she no longer hoped for Ethan's forgiveness. So when Ethan asked her again and again, "Why?" she choked up. Ethan asked her, "Do you love power that much? Are you that devoid of human feeling? Do you even know what emotion is? Do you understand what love is?" Mrs. Hawthorne truly didn't. In her time, she had been married off to Ethan's father in a daze. She was just an ordinary girl of that era. She had suffered, and she knew how hard the journey had been. She couldn't bear to let her son suffer through it all again. She smiled and stammered, "Mom doesn't understand, but Mom just wants you to suffer less. Mom understands the hardships of this journey. I'm not asking for your forgiveness, nor for your understanding. I only hope that you can be happy in the future. You and Grace are not from the same world. Let her go, and let yourself go too." The truth was finally out. He investigated the events of that year thoroughly, only to discover how much he owed her. Ethan stripped all of Mrs. Hawthorne's shares from the company. It was his final decision. She was his mother. He couldn't think of any other way. She was at fault, but love itself is not a fault. Perhaps they stood on different grounds. Ethan couldn't empathize with his mother's position at the time, but he couldn't deny that she was still a mother who loved her son. Ethan rarely went home, but he often sent things. Inside were snacks his son loved, toys he brought back from abroad, and health supplements for Mrs. Hawthorne. The old lady and her little grandson played together, and they were quite happy. Except for the times when his son would cry out for his mother, there was nothing else. He had secretly read his son's diary. The handwriting was crooked and messy, as if it had been smudged by tears. It read, "Mom, when are you coming back? I really, really miss you. I miss the nutritional soup you used to make, and the little sweaters you used to knit for me with a smile. You're not here, and there's no one to make me do my homework anymore, no one who remembers my birthday so clearly. Dad is busy, and I often sleep alone in my room. You told me that boys have to be strong and stand tall, but sometimes I'm still very, very scared. I'm scared of the sudden noises in my room. I've been dreaming a lot lately. I dream of Mom waking me up with a smile. I wish the dream could be a little longer so that Mom would always be by my side." Yes, Ethan closed the book. He missed Grace too. He took out his phone, suddenly realizing how long he had been busy. He gently opened their chat. He read their past conversations over and over. This was all he had left of her. Everything had finally settled. The misunderstandings of those years had long since vanished into thin air. Serena's understanding nature, her wifely virtues, it was all an act. She didn't care about Ethan. She cared about the heir to the Hawthorne Group. After Grace left, all her masks were torn off. She no longer affectionately cared for Elias, no longer let him call her mommy. Whenever Elias ran up to her, she would push him away with annoyance and curse, "Get lost, don't get my clothes dirty, you little brat." For him, for the Hawthorne family, it was always only about benefits. And the reason she forced Grace away was simply to marry into the Hawthorne family legitimately. As the daughter-in-law, she could more openly seek her own interests. All these years, Ethan had been relentlessly searching for leverage against Serena. He dug up a lot of evidence and finally discovered that Serena's company was non-compliant and had accepted bribes illegally. He didn't let anyone who had bullied Grace get away. He made them all pay the price. But when he had brought everything back to a state of calm, he realized that nothing he did mattered anymore. In his free time, Ethan would go to Grace's room, slowly looking at the things inside. He had restored her room to how it used to be. Seeing those things, he felt as if he could see the Grace of that year again. He wanted to forget, too, but everything in Aria City reminded him that he had lost the girl whose eyes were once filled only with him. He often stared blankly at the blinds, the empty room left with only him. One day, he sat alone on the sofa, thinking for a long time. This was the 5th winter since she had left. Outside, the snow was falling heavily. Below, the car lights stretched out in a continuous line. It felt like a lifetime ago. He suddenly remembered that on this day, many years ago, the girl had been by his hospital bed. Crying, her face covered in tears. He had silently wiped away her tears and vowed to marry her. In the end, he broke his promise. One late night, he woke up in his room again. He had been very busy lately, and his stomach ached terribly. Outside the window, a cold moon hung in the sky. He lay in bed, listening to the clock on the wall ticking forward, over and over. Time was moving forward, but his Grace would forever remain in his past. He remembered again. That winter in Northwood, his girl married someone else. She had wished him happiness, wished him to find someone he liked, her eyes sincere and open. They were truly destined to be apart. My tea shop has become a chain. I never thought I could become so successful, to become the female boss of a chain of stores. I sometimes wonder when I became so lucky. Maybe it was after I met Hope, or maybe it was after I met Julian. I used the money I earned to donate to many people, the homeless, the displaced. I want to use my money to preserve as much of the world's beauty and its brightest smiles as possible. Another New Year's Eve. I was leaning back in the lounge chair again, watching the fireworks explode in the distance, but I was no longer alone. Now, I have a loving husband and a lovely daughter. A life of simple contentment is better than one of grand perfection. Grace always had a wish. May this world be full of peace and happiness and less sorrow. As the New Year's bell rang, I silently said to myself, Happy New Year. The dumplings are here, one for Mom and one for our lovely Hope. I turned my head and looked at Julian at the dining table and smiled. The end.